it is that, a lot of the cases that I've ran into are the family had reported them missing at some point. They've been cleared off probably the BOLO list, not actually even an official missing person report, but, that second and third time is the time that they were really missing. They were, dead, you know what I mean?
Right, right,
And so
right.
it's hard because, these families, have tried, and it's not like they were just people that were out there in the world, you know what I mean? Like they actually have families who love them, who miss them, who wanted better for them, and they tried to help. But a lot of the times, like we know, if they're homeless, if they have addiction issues, if they have mental health issues, they're the ones that kind of get the lesser of the attention when it comes to, resources and investigative.
Have a great guest. I stumbled upon her, which I am so happy that I did. She has worked cold cases, missing person cases. She's working to serve our community in ways that most people don't even realize. Tonight, we have a special guest on our podcast, and that's Laura Bullock. And she's going to end up telling us what it is she does, how she founded this passion, and maybe answer a couple questions of mine if she's up to it. Okay. Hi, Laura. How you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good.
Okay, so
I'm
what we're
good.
gonna do, I want the people kind of to know the person that I've gotten to meet and who you are, why this came about, and why this is important to you.
Yeah, so I started probably about 6 years ago or so, and I started with South Dakota Missing Persons. That idea kind of spawned from the fact that I had a teenager that had run away, and I felt, being the parent and being the one person that was out there looking for my daughter, printing flyers, and where she was or ended up being was actually like 4 hours away. So I would drive out there and I would put up posters. I was spreading the word on the internet, that kind of thing. And this was like 10 years ago. So it
Right.
started a long time ago, kind of the thought. But I found, just in being at home and, trying to find something to fulfill my time, and give myself a little bit of purpose, I founded the South Dakota Missing Persons, and I basically will scour our South Dakota database, and I'll post, everybody for the day on the database. Sometimes I get families to reach out to me, sometimes they don't. But I always try to get the word out for our South Dakota Missing Persons, to get them home, quickly and safely. So it's kind of where it started about 6 years ago or so.
It's really crazy because we've talked several times, and I never understood that your daughter went missing at one point. So
Me
why
too.
don't we take it back a little bit to when you found out she was missing and how that affected you and your feelings behind that.
Yeah. So my I adopted my daughter when she was 13. I was a single mom. I basically came back to South Dakota from Denver to adopt her, went through foster parent classes, things like that. She had a bit of a troubled upbringing. So there was, when she came missing, obviously, with teenagers, they ran away.
Right,
When they
right,
run out of means, I was told when they run out of means, they'll come home.
right.
And she was just risky enough that I didn't really trust that that would be the case. I was really worried about that. Um, so she was gone about 3 months or so. She was a runaway. We did find that, fairly early on, that she was a runaway, but it took literally me going through. I found an email address that she had, and she had communicated through Google. So it took me literally going into to the search and through Google and going through the emails and finding the IP addresses of the
Wow.
places that she was actually on, and I would submit that to the detective. The detective would submit for a subpoena for the physical location, and then they go check. So it was a long drawn out process, and it felt really lonely. And so I kind of felt that firsthand, how the parents feel. And a lot of parents don't know, the things that you can do to track your kids. Even
Right.
if you don't, she didn't have a phone, she didn't have money, she didn't have a job, she didn't have a car, but there was ways and means, just got to dig a little deeper. And that's how she was ultimately found. So
So you started you basically what you're saying is you kind of started your passion because you were nosy, you were nosy enough to dig.
Yes, yeah,
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 because some,
and I mean
some
that.
what they don't understand is some parents, and the reason I took you back to that is because what people don't understand, once you're in those type of situations, some people don't understand it until they experience it. And
Right.
it took you to know, though, handing out those flyers is a lonely place. No one really helping you to go out and search for your daughter, not having the right answers and being in it alone made it where you're like, wow, this is something that these people go through on a regular basis.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the foundation that you work with, because you worked on, when we met, you were working a case. What was his name? Do you remember that case that you were
Oh,
working? I think it's Terrell or something, was it?
probably Tyler Weathersby is when
That's
we
right.
first came to really visiting. So right now I've started with Justice 929, so founded by Selwyn Jones, uncle of the late George Floyd. And we have a plethora of of different people that do different pieces. So I essentially am the missing person director. And then we've got Ty, who works with veterans. We've got Amy, who's a law professor. She does wrongful convictions, exonerations, that kind of thing. And then obviously Selwyn does the social justice, police brutality, things of that nature. So just trying to make the world a better place, for everybody, because it seems like there's so many failures and so much hurt and trauma going on that if we can help in any way, that's what we want to do. So
Okay, so walk me through. I have someone missing, and it's a cold, well, not a cold case, but someone tells you, hey, this is a missing person. Tell me what that looks like
Mhm.
for you from the start to finish,
So
if there is a
a lot
finish.
of times I do get in South Dakota, we've got a lot of teenagers that are we've got some habitual ones, but you never want to assume with them. A lot of times when I have a family reach out to me, I'll start with creating a flyer for them. um the hard part is because we're not funded yet. The things that I want to do to help the families is a little limited, but I have a really good following on Facebook. I also admin for missing people bolo. I admin
Okay,
on murdered and missing indigenous of South Dakota. And
okay,
then missing and murdered indigenous relatives, I admin on there. And I've got, I don't know, hundreds of missing pages that, whenever somebody goes missing, if we know a targeted area, I'll literally start in that state and I'll find every ask, I don't know, like the buy nothing groups, or like I'll add
right, right.
random groups from those areas and I will just blast it everywhere.
Okay.
And it seems to get a lot of traction, just by getting the name and the faces and stuff out there and people sharing. So yeah, I usually start with the flyers and the social media blasts, that kind of thing. And then if we have to continue further, then we continue further. I do have the rest of the team too is really helpful in these situations. If we need to bring it to TikTok, we'll bring it to TikTok. I've got, for the South Dakota missing persons, I've got Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and try and air on those places too, because it does help to get names of bases out really
When you're
quickly. So
working with the missing persons, getting their families involved is really important. How do you
it
run into,
is.
because when we're working with missing persons, sometimes the family is in such a turmoil, it's hard for them to really get involved. And a lot of people don't understand. They think like, oh, if they're not looking, it's really not. I've seen that. It's really not about them. Um, some people don't have enough strength, that, you know what I mean?
Right.
So when you
Yes.
don't have the back of the family, how does that make it harder for you to look for the missing persons part?
You know, I I don't think so, because I feel like the community steps in then.
Okay.
There's some cases that I never have a family contact for. And
Okay.
there's a lot of reasons for that. Because some of these kids are running from foster care or,
Right.
guardianships, that kind of thing. So some are difficult, but I think the community steps in then. Um I think just like you said, not all families are equipped for that, but if you can walk alongside a family and, kind of even if it's, taking a 10 o'clock phone call, from them just to comfort them, to listen to them, to hear about their loved one, I think that that is equally as, beneficial as walking out in the woods and, and helping them physically search. And that's what I at least try to do, at minimum, is to be that person that they can call and, and ask questions. Or, if they've got a missing person and we've got an attempt to locate or a bolo put out, I can guide them down that path of, taking them back to the police department and demanding that missing person report, pulling up the state, legislation that says this is what they're supposed to do, but
Right,
it
right,
helps just to have a sounding board sometimes for them is critical for them, because they're in uncharted waters, like they haven't been there and they don't know
right,
what they don't know, you know?
right.
So,
And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, what kind of heart or what kind of person do you have to be never to have really, because you're, even though your daughter was missing, you got her 3 months later, you kind of knew she was a runaway, but some of the people
yep,
you're working with, they have not discovered their families at all. And
right,
most of the time, as people such as myself, we come in because we have experienced this to a certain degree. And
right.
I'm listening to you and I'm like, wow, like this, how powerful is it for someone to sit on the phone with another parent, that the empathy that has to be in you is very rare, especially in this time and age. I just wanted to say that as you were speaking, but I do want us to get into, because the main reason, because you're like a little superhero, a little to me, a little bit. I know you say you're not, but
No.
so I'm gonna kind of go over it a little bit. We were on the phone talking a little bit one night, and all of a sudden she just kind of comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, I just found like several people," and I'm like, "Found them?" I'm like, "Where where are they?" And I'm like, because it's different types of missing people,
Right.
and I did not know Miss Laura basically made me realize that it was a whole nother section that no one actually even looks at. I want you to tell them exactly kind of how you stumbled upon it, what these people are, how this goes before you tell any of
Mhm.
your adventures. I'm going to put it like that, or your journeys. I want you to tell them this particular category of people, if you don't mind.
Yes. So the national database, the nameless database, there's three components to that. So there's the missing persons, and that's typically it's reserved for, long-term missing, and everybody categorizes that as different. Some states it's, you know, 30 days, 90 days, sometimes it's over a year. I know in South Dakota, there's only 16 states that are legislated to utilize the national database. So anybody else, they don't have to put that information in there. So meaning a person missing in South Dakota could be a decedent in, Iowa, and those would never cross check ever, without somebody
Right, right.
physically putting eyes on that. So that's kind of where I kind of started digging into to that database. So there's a missing person component for the long-term missing or whatever you deem that to be as far as long-term in your state. And then there's unidentified. So those are people that are, deceased, wherever they may be. We don't know their name. They didn't have any form of identification. Nobody knows who they are. Generally with those, there is something that, like law enforcement will put out something. Hopefully, generally, they put out something and say, does anybody know who this person is?
Right, right.
But they're unidentified for all intents and purposes. There's no next of kin because they don't know who they are. And then the third piece is the unclaimed. So unclaimed is we know who these people are. We've verified either with fingerprints, dental, their form of ID, whatever they had on them. We know exactly who they are. We just don't know their story. We don't know their family. We don't have a next of kin.
Mm.
Um, so in the process of the unidentified is when I really figured out the need for the unclaimed. Right now, there's over 15,000 unidentified in the United States. And I say
Can
United
you
States,
say
but
that
they do
say that number
include
one more
like,
time? Can you say that number one more time so they
oh, it's
know?
15,000. I think there was 15. Yes, sorry. I think there's 15,047 the last time I looked. unidentified. So, and they
Right.
do include like Puerto Rico, they include I think parts of Canada is included in there too. Um, and then there's 21,003. It's actually went up since we talked last week, but 21,003 unclaimed people. So 21,000 people that we know who they are. Like, we literally know their first, middle, last name, generally date of birth, something, we know enough about them to know exactly who they are, and we've identified who they are. And that really struck me. I One of the first cases I did, I called up to New York's medical examiner's office, and that place is like I don't know, that's a huge hub because they do Manhattan, they do Queens,
Okay.
they do New York City, and they do,
That's
what's the other one
overwhelming.
right up there?
Bronx?
Yes, yes. So that same office takes care of all, yes, the Bronx. Yep, they take care of all of those.
Yeah.
And one thing that stood out to me and that stayed with me is the fact that I was told from a supervisor there that they can't search for living people. And
Mm.
I'm like, wow. Um, and that's really what started it all, because we've got the world at our fingertips at any given
When
moment. There's so many
when you
resources.
when you say they can't search for resources, because I want to make it clear, because I don't want any of the law enforcement and departments thinking that we're putting anything crazy. When you say they can't search
Right.
from them, is it if they're not reported missing? When can't they search for them?
Right. Right. So if they're not reported missing, if they don't have, anything label, and it's gotten a little hairier because, when you feel like they have all the pieces that they could have connected, the dots, and they
Mhm.
haven't, it makes me question. But what I think they're referring to is if they don't have anybody listed immediately, within their reach, whether
Mm,
that's medical records, they can't continue to
right, I got
search.
you. Right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So go ahead and let us know, with your story that you were saying. You said that you were searching for this person, and the first
Yeah.
person.
So yep. New York is that's a big state with a lot of
Mm,
people. And they've got a lot of unidentified people. They've got a lot of
wow.
unclaimed people. Um, but really what I found was that, everybody has a mark somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're, unless you're like over the age of, I would say like 70, you probably don't have a Facebook or don't have, things online somewhere, but a lot of
Right.
people do. Um, so I just feel like there's always a mark. There's always something, somewhere.
A
Sorry, I think I'm gonna
footprint.
have to tell my son to get out of here. He snuck out on me. One
It's
sec.
okay. You want me to pause it?
Yes, would you?
Yeah, sure.
His mom cashed in everything she had, and she went to New York looking for her son, asking questions, doing flyers, going to the police department. And she was basically told, go home. Um, your son is, he's out here, he's homeless, he's fine, they would
He's
not
an
put a missing
adult.
person report out. Yeah.
He's an adult.
And yeah, and he's an adult. He doesn't want to be found. If he doesn't want to be found, there's nothing you can do. He'll be fine. He'll let you know when he's ready to talk to you. Um, she actually said she had one officer that stopped her and said, listen, go home, file the police report in your home state because that's the last known physical address he had. So that's what she did. And she continued to, to call out to New York, but that's a big place. They've got a lot of things going on. She did get a location on her son, and it was at a shelter, a homeless shelter. So she ends up, calling the police and saying, hey, he's at the shelter. Can you please go do a well check? They go to do a well check on him there. And Brandon is like, my family's all dead. They're not looking for me. And
Oh,
the
wow.
officer, yeah, yeah. Well, I
So
mean, mental
you're
health
telling me
again.
okay, so when she did the wellness check, he was at the shelter.
Yes.
Oh,
He was at
whoa.
the shelter. The police went, they talked to him. They said, do you know your mom, your sister, your family's all looking for you? He said, no, they're dead. And the mom was like, just lost. And the
Right.
officer calls her back and he says, we went, we checked, he's fine, quit calling. And
Oh,
she was just, like, beside herself. She was so distraught, like, didn't know what to do. She did go back home. She hired a private investigator there. She was also under the assumption that he was listed in California as a missing person. Now, when I went and looked, I didn't see him on New York State database or California
mhm,
State database. It's not
right,
unusual, again, when they're homeless, they have addiction issues, they have mental health issues, they tend to put out what we call an attempt to locate or a bolo. It's
mhm,
if the
yeah,
police come in contact with you, then we'll clear it. Otherwise,
right,
if it's a missing person report, we have to investigate it.
right,
So she was under the assumption that that had happened. Um, so anyways, rewind, Brandon's, I mean, it's a postmortem picture, so it's a decedent's picture,
right,
pops up on the national database, and facial recognition software identified him as Brandon. And
mm,
so I call and I call the medical examiner's office and I get the supervisor and I say, I'm positive this is who it is. This is his mom's Facebook. This is his mom's phone number. This is his sister. This is his brother. I gave them all that information. And she says, well, unfortunately, we can't reach out
that's
that way.
not
And
in
I'm
their
like, well,
scope,
right. And I'm like, well, I
basically.
know you can't reach out on Facebook, but you have means, right? You have connections to people that can find out phone numbers, right? And she's like, well, if you can make contact with them and let them know to call us, will be the best way.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wow.
wow. Wow, so just me, I'm not anybody special. I'm literally just I'm a mom in South Dakota. Really? You want me to just call this family? And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's a lot.
okay.
Yeah.
So and at that point I had the mom's phone number, but I wasn't 1,000% that was, her phone number. I called, I left a voicemail, I sent a text message and messaged, anybody that I thought was family on Facebook. Um, and unfortunately, it is kind of a luck of the draw sometimes because, and I don't even know if I'd say it that way in hindsight, but whoever gets back to me first is really the person that I talk to. And I hate that because, but it is just what it is. I don't have a
Right.
choice in, who sees the message, who doesn't. I try to add them as friends, anything I can do to get them to be able to see my message. Um, and the person that ended up messaging me back was his twin sister. And
Oh,
that like crushed me. I'm a twin mom. So that like broke my heart,
oh,
absolutely broke my heart. And she just said, is he okay? And I'm like, no, he's not. And then it's like you almost have to confirm that it is him. Um, and that's I don't know, that's the hard part because there is, you know, I don't know. There's people that can't look at a postmortem picture of a loved one. I would never want to put that on somebody that isn't equipped to handle that. And really, even if you are equipped, I think it's like the hardest thing in the world, especially your twin brother.
so you had to
Um,
show her the picture?
I sent it to her uncle instead
Okay. Okay.
because yeah,
Good.
she was yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
I always, I never would send anything without permission, and I would never, ask somebody to identify somebody without them knowing fully what they're looking at. But that one was really
oh,
sad because he was fairly young yet. He had so much life ahead of him, and he had such a loving family that just wanted him to get help and to be okay.
so
Um,
when you talk to because you finally got to talk to the mom, right?
I did, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. She called
And
me, and oh,
I'm pretty
you can
sure
about
she
imagine.
was, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was, even when it calms down, when you get out of the emotion, you have to think, and I want you to, I know you don't look at it like that because you're so into it where it's almost like it's not even a big deal to you when I talk to you about it. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm gonna shake you sometime, be like, Laura,
Ah,
are you serious?
well,
For you to if I'm looking for my child and there's someone that can call me up and tell me where my
mhm,
child is, no matter what that circumstance is. I tell people all the time, and this is just from my standpoint, when Jabez was missing, it it hurt way more than somebody telling me that they had found him. Because
mhm.
at least I can do something about this.
Right,
You
right.
have to sleep with that for a duration of time. And this lady was sleeping with that over and over again,
Yes.
where her child was or what was going on. And the streets of New York are grim. They're not
Yeah.
some
And
where
that had been almost a year that
mm,
she had been, just in that balance of not knowing, you know what I
yeah.
mean? And not having heard from him, and family hadn't heard from him, and, knowing that he's struggling. Um, yeah,
And as a
that
mother
was
wanting to
horrible.
help
Oh,
him in any type of way that she could.
yes.
So, she was very grateful to you, right?
She was, and it was, oh my gosh. She did a really beautiful, like, what do you call it? Like his service. It was like
Obituary.
almost like a video. Yeah,
Oh,
and yeah, it was like a little video, and they had a really beautiful service out there. I attended virtually, but she put my name in the back of the thing, and I just lost it because I don't know. And she didn't
I
have to
just,
do that, but it was
th
it was so thoughtful and just so sweet.
yeah, this to me, this was a very important, I did podcasts. This is one of the most important ones I've done because I don't think people realize, and I didn't really either, uh, unidentified people, especially unidentified, because you don't even know who you're looking to contact, and those people are
Hmm.
just sitting there or they've been buried, and um, it just it seems lonely. But the
Hmm.
unclaimed have a chance
Right.
to be in contact with their family because they do have one thing, and that's a name.
Right.
So,
Right. And you touched on a really good piece too. Um, like in that case, in Brandon's case, he was not buried yet.
oh,
And that I do find that with some of the unclaimed and unidentified after so long, because he'd only been passed about a month before I had reached out
okay,
to them. And
okay.
that was a little bit of a saving grace because the call I had before that was a year and a half
Mm,
that Joelle had waited. So that, I don't know, like I hate to even say it that way, but thank God he didn't sit there any longer, you know what I mean? Or he'd have to be buried, or you know what I mean?
he made
Something
it.
else. And then his family couldn't bring him home,
Right,
or they
right.
had to
And
pay dearly to bring him home.
yeah, I mean that it makes a, I think it makes a really big difference, especially uh, you know, with her searching for him the way she was. I'm almost for
Mhm.
certain it was a big deal. She got to do what she needed to do for her baby at the end.
Yes.
And that's important for
Yes.
her. You know what I mean? Especially if
Hmm.
you're saying this woman is the way you're saying she is, and she's went through all this, it's very important for her to have her baby back and her to be able to do
Yes.
the closure with her family, not
Yes.
just
Exactly.
not just herself, just with her family. I'm so
Yes.
happy that I'm so happy. I'm not happy for her in a sense of that type of happiness, but I know that your phone call, your messages to them brought them something that I don't think you will ever even understand. I don't know. I don't know if you'll ever fully understand that. I don't want you to, but that's a power. It was powerful what you did.
Mhm.
So how many people now? So we were on the phone one night, and you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna look for this person," and I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh. Yeah.
"Okay, all right." And you had me digging. My husband had to tell me, "Hey, you get away from that computer. Laura's not gonna do you like that." And I was like, "No, we can
I try
find
to
these
tell you, this
people."
is like a never ending rabbit hole once you start doing this, because what I found is that it really doesn't take a lot. You know
Right,
what I mean? Like yeah, like the magnitude of like what has transpired is huge for a family that's been waiting and hoping and that kind of thing. It's huge. But when I think about what times that I put in to like really find these people, I mean, some are much more labor intensive than others, but some of them have been so minimal. You know what I mean? Like so the case you're talking about, her name's Stephanie, and she was out in Fresno.
right,
Her family is about 4 hours south of there. So long and short, Stephanie was in the unclaimed portion. So she had what they called an overdose. Um,
right.
they bring her in, they do fingerprints, and they find out who she is. Um, so they knew exactly who she was. They pulled up her driver's license. It's got her address on there, right? her address is the same address that was her grandparents' address and then her parents' address. And it's actually aired to her sister and her brother. And she's got really, I don't know what I did was with her, I literally went and found her Facebook page and I double
Okay.
checked it with facial recognition to just make sure that, this picture, her driver's license picture and her Facebook picture matched so that I knew that I was on the right person. And I just went backwards on her Facebook timeline. And just in that time that I talked to you, what was it, maybe an hour, I
Yeah.
found that she had struggled with addiction. She was in and out of homelessness. She lost custody of her son about 10 years ago. She lost her mom about 5 years ago. She actually lost her brother to suicide within the last few years. But I found all of this just on her Facebook in public knowledge. And then you go through the comments and stuff, and then I find a sister. And unfortunately, in cases like this too, when you message somebody random, like, hey, I'm trying to get in contact with, Stephanie Kruger's family. Um, are you her sister? I kind of keep it as simple as I can because I want to get them on the phone to kind of talk through things and explain who I am and why I do what I do and that kind of thing before I, really tell them what's going on. And I
Right.
also like to try to get a feel for who the person was, like,
Right.
are they, like just to confirm things,
Right. Right.
excuse me.
Fill them out.
So I find
Gotta
a,
fill them out.
yes.
Okay.
So I found a sister. And like I said, sometimes they feel like it's a scam, because there are a lot of scams out there and it's very, very valid, and we kind of got talking and she's like, she's kind of mean to me, if I'm being honest. She's like, I just had lunch with my sister, not that long ago. Who are you? Are you a scammer? Should I call the police? And I'm like, no, no, like, don't do that. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm like, I'm just trying to help, and your sister has the same name as a person that was found, found deceased, and I'm trying to help find her family,
Yeah.
and she didn't reply to me for the rest of the night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, either she's processing or she's like, this lady's a
Calling the
scammer and she's
cops.
calling the police on me. Yes. So I'm like,
She's
oh
calling
crap,
the
what
cops.
did I do? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let her be. I'm not gonna push. I'm just gonna give
Right.
her that time.
Right.
Um, and I waited till like the next afternoon and I just messaged and I said, if it would make you feel better, if make you feel better or more at ease, I'll call the medical examiner's office and find out what the date of birth is that they have on file. And she actually called me on Facebook and she says, I'm sorry, that was my sister. I was just so, taken back and thrown off and, and didn't know what
I
to
can
do.
imagine.
I needed to talk to my brother and yeah, that was really hard.
Yeah.
Because she was one of those sisters that was actively trying to help her with her mental health, help her with her addiction issues. She's putting out missing person reports for her sister. She's literally driving in the deserts looking for her sister. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that was really hard. Because she was really trying, and her sister had sat at the coroner's office for a month and nobody had knocked on her door. She lives in a house that was on her driver's license. She
Mm.
took her to her doctor's appointment. She's next of kin on everything. So just a little piece of like searching, just one knock on the door, you know what I mean? Just go to the physical address that you have for her would have saved her sister a month of not knowing.
I when we talked the other day, I was wondering, there's different departments of different things, right?
Hmm.
And the unclaimed, I wonder what the piece of them being reported, that middle piece in the medical examiner's office. It's a
Right.
piece that I think might be because the examiner's office has to report that, right?
Right.
Somebody takes that
Yep.
information in. But I
Hmm.
think there's a particular what you're doing is the particular thing that's missing right between those two things.
Right. But here's the thing though, is when somebody is found deceased, the police come first. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
911 comes, they call the coroners and medical examiners out. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So that they know this stuff, like they have to have been involved initially. But I wonder if there isn't a piece like the coming around full circle that's not happening.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
we came out, we called you out, you came. now who's up? You know what I mean?
Right, that's the piece that
And
I'm
it's
talking
definitely
about,
missing.
because if the
Yep.
last case that you discussed, if she overdosed, it's not a homicide. It's not really the police
Right.
part anymore. They're taken out of it. The medical examiner has did his part. He's already reported that it's an
Hmm.
unclaimed body. There's a piece of this puzzle of what you're doing, which is so important, that's what we were talking about with the structuring, that having those type of people in place like that. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, you want to dig. And if we had the
Yeah.
funding behind you, it probably would be a lot of other families that would be able to have the closure that you're giving these families.
Yes.
I told my husband, I said, he was like, "What does Laura do?" I said, "She's a lunch lady." He said, "A lunch lady?"
I'm a part-time lunch
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah, I said, "She's a
Yes.
lunch lady." I said, "She does this on her." He was like, "That's gonna be a great title. The lunch lady that found four missing people." That's gonna be the name of this
Oh my God.
podcast. Because guess what?
That's
Doesn't
funny.
that sound amazing? If the
Uh,
lunch lady,
Literally, I mean,
come
that's what
on
I
now.
say. I'm not anybody special.
Yeah,
That's why I don't feel like
but
it's
you
so
are.
inappropriate for me to call these people. I'm honored to help, and I'm honored
That's
to
right.
to be a part of it. But I'm like, I am so not equipped for this. Well, I guess
I
I've
guess
got
I mean, I don't know if you know it
I've
or not.
gotten
You've
there,
done
but
it
my
a
God.
couple times. I don't know if you noticed. You're equipped now. You're equipped. I mean, you
Yeah.
honestly, if there was anything that I could say also to our audience tonight, there's she needs help. She has she knows how to do this. She knows what she's doing. She needs help, and we're calling for other people that don't mind learning this skill and trying to get them in different states where we can kind of discover, because these are missing people. It might not be a flyer out there for everybody. It might not be somebody's actively looking for them, and it might be that their family doesn't even know they're missing.
Right.
So this falls
Mhm.
definitely under missing in cold case for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. Is that a lot of the cases that I've ran into are the family had reported them missing at some point.
Mhm.
They've been cleared off probably the BOLO list, not actually even an official missing person report, but that second and third time is the time that they were really missing. They were, dead, you know what I mean?
Right, right,
And so
right,
it's hard because these families, have tried, and it's not like they were just people that were out there in the world, you know what I mean? Like they actually have families who love them, who miss them, who wanted better for them, and they tried to help. But a lot of the times, like we know, if they're homeless, if they have addiction issues, if they have mental health issues, they're the ones that kind of get the lesser of the attention when it comes to resources and investigative, that kind of thing from law enforcement. And I hate that it's like that. And it's not just, it's not anywhere. I mean, I have cases in California, I've got cases in New York, I've got cases down in Atlanta, that I know were all of the above or pieces of, mental health, addiction, that kind of thing that did get brushed under the rug.
right.
So, um,
Well, what I want you to do is I want you to share with the audience how you think that they can help you, even if it's just funding, financial, whatever ways that you think that you need for whatever departments, whatever people that's out there, and resources that you would need, that you can tell them, on the airways, like, what do you think you need for us to support you and resources?
um, I think it would be beneficial. I think about this all the time. If I can I try to sit down, at least every maybe couple days. I try not to overdo it because I feel like my heart just can't take it.
Right,
But if
right,
I can sit down, in an evening, and I can learn all of this stuff about one person in an hour and a half, and maybe it carries over to tomorrow, and maybe I sent messages out and I don't get anything back after 3 or 4 days, you know what I mean? And I try again. But if I can do that in just this little bit of time, and a little bit of effort and energy, if we had 100 of us, like
Yes.
think of the dent that we can make in 20,000 with 100 people doing that, you know? And this is not something that I've been doing for years. Like this is something that I picked up in the last like probably 3 months or so. And we've done three unidentified. And technically, you know, there's a couple that we weren't the ones to notify family, but we identified them and sent the information in as well. But we didn't
Right.
have family contact. So, you know, there's others, but you know, that's a handful of people that, you know, that would have been sitting there. And if we had
Right.
100, I mean, that would be so impactful. Same thing with the unclaimed, you know, even if it's, you know, if I have one person in each state that just says, okay, I have three people under me, you know what I mean? Just
Right.
people that
Right.
want to help and that are dedicated to helping. And then just making sure that their empathy and their compassion is there too, because
Yeah.
um, I had one case that I called and I got a cousin. Um, and this cousin let out the most, oh, just it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Just a screech. Like you could feel like the pain and the anguish and just grief in this scream that she let out. And uh, like I can
Couldn't
still
hold it
feel
together.
it all over my
Yeah.
body, you know, like, and you have to, I don't ever want to become immune to that stuff, you know, but you
Right.
have to be sensitive to that and you have to, I don't know, just, you know, be quiet when you need to be quiet. Just let them, you know, let them have that and just be there and support, you know. Um, so I think, you know, having other people that are just as empathetic and compassionate, that just want to take, you know, their me time and, you know, and do it in their off time, you know.
Right. Right.
Even if it's just a case here and there, it makes a big difference for these families. There is one case I wanted to tell you about, because this was another one that it's so I feel like all these cases kind of come to me somehow, or if I look at their picture, I'm like, oh, that one like really like, I don't know, like
Touches
speaks
you.
to you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's one case, and his name was Michael. Um, so he was out in New York area. Um,
Okay.
and I so completely random. I'm scrolling through Facebook, you know, like the mindless stuff that you do when you're just scrolling and reading, you know. And I see this post and it's for a lady and she says, I haven't ever met my dad. You know, I've been looking for him for over 30 years. I did get in contact with his sisters, but they haven't talked to him in over 20 years.
Right.
Um, and I'm like, wow, like that's wild. And I don't know what part of me was like, go check the unclaimed, like go check. And I did. And I literally put his name in and he popped up right there,
Wow.
clear as day. And I was like, wow, I go looking. I'm not even a part of that group on Facebook. I wasn't even a part of that group at all. It just came up on my feed. And I ended up reaching out to the daughter, you know, who obviously didn't know him. Um, but like she said, she had, you know, she had talked to, you know, aunts, sisters of his. They hadn't talked to him in over 20 years. And he was kind of living I don't know, a bit of a different lifestyle. You know, he was homeless
Right.
at times, and had issues of his own. Um, and that one was hard too, because it was like he was there, but he had been there since 2021.
Oh, wow.
So years, you know, and his sisters, you know, up there in age, I wouldn't say up there in age, maybe like in her 60s, but
Right.
wouldn't have
Right.
ever known about the unclaimed, you know what I mean? And wouldn't have probably ever thought to report him missing, you know. So that one was really sad too, because it was like she was longing for this, you know, this father that she now will never get to meet, you know. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. And like I said, there's, you know, there's these things that like just draw you to a person or like that catch your attention that make you want to, you know, to keep going. And she actually, when I talked to her, she said, you're not even going to believe this, but um, today is the anniversary of my mother's death. And
Oh,
she had
wow.
died when she was 6. So
Wow.
she, you know, she pretty much grew up, you know, in and out of foster care and that kind of thing. And so yeah, she's like, this was the anniversary of my mom's passing, you know, when we started talking and, you know, you kind of told me everything. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like to me, that's, you have angels watching over you and
Yeah.
they're guiding you, you know what I mean? And they're guiding me too because I wasn't even a part of that group. I
Right.
just happened to see it and, something about it like made me want to go look.
Yeah, and
So,
she doesn't have to go to her grave trying to figure out whether or not she can find him or not. I know it's
right?
not the
Yeah,
best way to find him, but it was some type of closure that she got to have.
exactly.
And I don't think people
Yeah.
realize um closure is different for everybody. It's different
Yes.
for everybody. So, but some things, the little wins count more than people really realize. You know what I'm saying? I remember
Mhm.
when people used to tell me, well, at least you found him. And you know what? I had to say, yeah, you're
Eh,
right, because there's some people that are living on this earth that they have
mhm.
told them their children are missing and they haven't seen their children. I know a lady that her baby was taken at 5 days old. He would
Oh
be
my God.
46 years old now, never got to see her baby anymore. So, I
Wow.
mean, to live with that for that amount of
Mm.
time, you have to be very strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a
That's
different
a
game
that's
out
a
here.
topic for another day. I've got a story for you about something similar to that too. We'll have to chat on
Okay,
that
okay.
one later.
It's I don't think people realize
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah, and that,
this,
I will tell you in that oh, sorry, in that case, he was buried already.
mm,
Sometimes the county will step in and they'll
okay,
do burial and that kind of thing. Um, so he was buried and there really wasn't, I mean, outside of literally, relocating him, which obviously the family did not want to do, but
right, right.
they offered it to him. But in that case, he had been gone for years now,
So
literally out there for years.
do you know? Because I've been curious about this. Where when they bury unclaimed bodies, is there certain
Mhm.
cemeteries that they have just for like the government, or do they get buried in cemeteries that's already having, you know what I'm saying, families out there? How does that work?
I think with unclaimed because they know who they are, I think that they're just kind of in the general cemetery. I know with unidentified, a lot of them they have like a certain like spot. Like there's
Okay.
like a John Doe that I'm working on out of Pennsylvania. Like there's a place that they have unidentified. And they're generally unmarked, not marked
Wow.
with anything, unless the community. Some cases, the community will rally and have a placard made or something like that. Just yeah.
I wonder, I sometimes wonder how they go about working on identified cases, especially if you can do it with facial recognition, correct? You can try that,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
those are very hard cases to work, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
For unidentified, you're saying?
Yes, unidentified, yeah.
Well, it depends. Some of them, s- I would say, if they're under 50, not that hard. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's so many apps. There's one called Pimize. There's one called Lenzo. There's one called Face Check. I just actually found a new one called Clarity Check, which I actually am really digging right now. But it costs a little bit
Okay.
more out of my budget right now.
Right,
Um,
right. But it's
but
good.
that one's really I don't know. I felt like that one worked so much easier. It actually kind of gave me a whole like picture of who this person was. There's
Oh, wow.
an unidentified that was just found literally days ago in Puerto Rico, young
Mhm.
woman, and we use facial recognition on her. But a lot of those, if you don't pay for their subscriptions, you don't get a lot of information. So you have to kind of use other means to then re-identify
Right.
this picture that is her. But this clarity check like laid it all out for me. The young lady's name was Destiny, and she was out in Puerto Rico visiting out there and kind of vacationing. And I'm not sure what exactly happened or transpired, but she was found in the water. Um, and long and short, this app literally identified her by name, and it told she's a budding social media person. She's got this. It took me literally to her link tree. To want to like literally to her
Really?
link tree that had her YouTube, everything. And I'm like, wow.
So she
So
was
that one
unidentified.
I'm gonna
So
have to use that one a little bit more.
has her family been notified?
She is identified now. Yep.
Oh,
Yep. And I reached out to the family. just to ensure, because I got really nervous about the Puerto Rico thing, because I called a couple times and I'm like, English? And they're like,
Right,
no.
right, right,
So I
right.
knew that was going to be a struggle, but I was able to get in touch with family and with a friend, and they said yes, we were made aware. So
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah,
That's
yes,
crazy. So I do want
absolutely
everybody
crazy.
to tonight to know that unidentified and unclaimed people are still missing persons. They're missing persons.
Absolutely. I almost feel
It
like it should just be displaced people is like the
right,
umbrella,
right, right. But
because
under
there's so many pieces.
yeah, because what it is just like how you were talking about the lady that had the private investigator. She was literally looking for her child.
Hmm.
So that person was, it falls up, and I never would have thought about that displaced, missing. However, it's a human being that's not accounted for
Hmm.
on this earth right now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So I just
Yep.
wanted to thank you for coming. I mean, I keep saying you're a superhero, and I know you don't think very much of it, but if those family members could, if I could talk to those family members and ask them, she's kind of a superhero, isn't she? They would say yes. They
You
would
know
say
what,
yes.
Tawana, we might have to do that, because I talked to a couple families here in the last couple days, and I'm like, you know what? I want all of you guys to come together, because again, like I said, like the homeless, the addicted, the mental health, those people they get more than tossed under the rug. Like
Yeah.
they get zero attention. You know what I mean? And that was the case for a lot of the families that I've dealt with. Um, and I want them all to come together, so that way we can try and make a little bit of a splash, and get somebody's attention. I don't know, call Nancy Grace and be like, this is a problem. If I've got one in California, I've got one in New York, and I've got one in Atlanta, that these were all falling under this umbrella of unfortunate situations. And
I
this is
think,
how law enforcement is handling these cases. You know what I mean?
or maybe what we need to do is we need to create a team to put in front of them to say, this is what this is supposed to look like. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where we start with you. That's why this interview is here, to get out, to let people know there's a link that's gone in this fence. And this young
Mm-hmm.
lady has found this link. We need to support her, even, I mean, from the things that you have, to get with somebody in law enforcement, try to get some training together, and what that looks like for you and other people pushing ahead. Because, like you said, 100 people, that's, well, it would be a little bit over 100 people, but that's 2 people in each state just
Right.
grinding it out every day trying to
Mm-hmm.
find these families. You can't go
Yeah.
wrong with You can't
Right.
go wrong with that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep.
So is there anything else
Yes.
before we leave that you would want to tell the audience about how important these people are, how important your work is, how they can contact you? You work with George Floyd's uncle. What's his name again?
Selwyn. Selwyn Jones.
Okay, say the whole
So
name. I
Justice
want to make sure.
929. Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I am willing and, able to help train, or, kind of walk you through some things. I know you got into, digging around on one in your area, but I am absolutely, if somebody wants to help, I will take anybody. Even
Okay.
if you want to just do the digging, I will take anybody that wants to help. And it doesn't take a whole lot, but what you give the family it's not even measurable, that closure, that peace. Yeah.
It's one thing I do want to step in. I want you to train other people, but we couldn't do just anybody. We have to do people that have the same kind of compassion and heart that you have,
Yeah,
because there's people out there that's
that's true.
just nosy, and these families do not just need people that's coming to them that's not going to be genuine, and they're already dealing with someone placing a phone call and saying this something has happened. So we do
Right.
need the right people. So she will.
You're right.
It does have to be some type of interview process when
Yes. Yes.
dealing with them. Yeah, that's
Yes.
important, because you
Yes.
what you encompass is what's needed, not just to dig. And I don't know if you were training, would they be doing the calling? Maybe you would just be doing that part, because everybody doesn't have that energy to
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
But, um just hoping that the right people fall into your lap. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So tell
So
them the rest of everything
I'm
that
on
you're doing.
Facebook, obviously. Oh, say
Yes.
that again.
Tell them what you're doing.
Um, yes, ma'am. I'm on Facebook, Laura Bullock on Facebook. If you go to South Dakota Missing Persons, I'm all over that. Justice 929. Otherwise, Tawana, you know how to get in touch with me too. She's
Right.
got my number. But yeah, that's why I kind of created that Facebook group. It's a very private group, and there's only
Right.
select people involved that I know are, on the same level,
Right.
and would be a good fit for us. But I'm more than willing, if you know people, I'm more than willing to add them in, and we can kind of get working on it. But yeah.
All right. Well, guys, tonight we have had a amazing guest, Laura Bullock, and thank you for coming on here. We appreciate you for everything you do. I am Tawana Span. This is the Best Span Foundation, Missing Our Voices. Please tune in next time for our next podcast. Thank you.